public lands are common ground, stretch for miles all around.
Okay, so today we're diving into public lands.
Okay.
Specifically, the fight over access and use,
Yeah.
with a focus on southern Utah.
All right.
We'll be looking at groups like the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance,
They pronounce it SUWA, by the way.
the Utah Public Lands Alliance,
UPLA.
UPLA, and the Blue Ribbon Coalition.
Sounds good.
And we'll look at their strategies and the money and resources they have,
Sure.
and the impact it all has on different users.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start.
I think some of their claims are pretty surprising.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start with SUWA.
Okay.
They're always in the news.
Yeah, SUWA is a pretty big player, and they've been around a long time advocating for wilderness designation.
Mm-hmm.
They use lawsuits and political influence to get what they want.
Interesting.
And they've really had a major impact on how public lands are managed in southern Utah.
Wow.
And interestingly, their recent financial reports show their assets and revenue are declining.
Huh. I wonder if their approach is getting too expensive or if people are questioning their strategies.
It's hard to say for sure, but we know their main focus is on wilderness designation,
Right.
which means a lot of restrictions on how the land can be used.
So no more like cruising around on ATVs or setting up big campsites in those areas.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow.
Wilderness designation usually limits things like motorized vehicles, building roads, and resource extraction.
Gotcha.
They want to keep the land as untouched as possible.
I get that some people like that,
Yeah.
but wouldn't that make it a lot harder for people to get to those areas?
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone can backpack for miles.
That's a good point. And that's exactly what groups like the UPLA and the Blue Ribbon Coalition are saying.
Yeah.
They believe that everyone should be able to use public lands regardless of how they want to recreate.
So they're fighting to keep those roads and trails open.
Exactly.
That's got to be a tough battle going up against SUWA.
It is.
With all their legal and political power.
It is, but these groups are dedicated to making sure everyone can enjoy these public lands. From hikers and campers to OHV enthusiasts, they believe that responsible use and proper management can balance preservation and recreation.
Okay, so you said responsible use.
Yeah.
Because SUWA talks a lot about the negative impact motorized vehicles have on the environment.
Right, and there's this story from SUWA Executive Director Scott Groen.
Okay.
He wrote about seeing the aftermath of this huge flash flood in Mill Creek Canyon.
Oh, wow.
And, I mean, the damage was crazy.
Really?
Trees uprooted, debris everywhere, the whole landscape was different.
Sounds awful.
It was. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Groen said that within a few months, the canyon would be mostly recovered.
Really?
Like new growth, the ecosystem bouncing back.
So nature can recover pretty quickly from a flood.
Yeah.
But it claims that tire tracks will scar the land forever.
Right. And critics say that overstates the impact of motorized vehicles, and they downplay how quickly nature can recover.
So it's a bit of a double standard.
Yeah, that's what some people think, especially those who need to use vehicles to get to remote areas, whether it's for recreation or other reasons.
So what's their end game?
Well, their strategy seems to be to first eliminate roads.
Okay.
They think roads disrupt the wilderness character.
Okay.
Then they target campsites, especially developed campsites or ones that are easy to reach with a vehicle.
Gotcha.
And then they restrict or eliminate grazing and resource extraction.
They really are trying to get rid of all signs of people.
They say these actions are necessary to protect the land and keep it pristine for future generations.
But wouldn't that keep a lot of people from enjoying the land?
Yeah, and that's exactly what UPLA and other groups are saying. They say, what about people with disabilities, families with young children, or older adults?
Right. If you can't drive there, how do you get there?
And groups like the Blue Ribbon Coalition are really fighting for people with disabilities to have access to public lands.
Okay.
They want trails and facilities that work for everyone.
So it's not just about protecting access for OHV users, but for everyone.
Yeah, for
Everyone should be able to enjoy public lands.
Yeah, that's the message from these groups.
Okay.
They're promoting responsible recreation, respect for the environment, and making sure everyone has access.
That's a tough job.
It is.
It's amazing how much work these groups do to keep the land in good shape.
Yeah.
They clean up trails, build and maintain facilities, and fight for policies that benefit everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that often goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
But it's vital to make sure that public lands stay open and enjoyable for everyone.
Okay, so on one hand, we have SUWA trying to restrict access.
Right.
And on the other hand, we have UPLA and the Blue Ribbon Coalition fighting to keep those roads and trails open. It's like a classic standoff. But now things are getting interesting.
Yeah.
The Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance has a new tool.
Okay.
It's called the BLM Landscape Health and Conservation Rule.
Oh,
And it could really change things. They might be able to get what they want without even going through Congress.
wow.
So what exactly is this rule and how could it affect public access?
Well, the Bureau of Land Management proposed it to promote conservation and restoration of the lands they manage.
Okay.
And it was controversial right away.
Right.
Yes, but groups like UPLA were worried about its impact on recreation and other uses.
So this could help restrict access to public lands.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It introduces some new things that could restrict access and limit how people use the land.
Like what kinds of things?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is something called conservation leases.
Conservation leases.
Yeah, basically the BLM could sell the right to manage public lands to private groups, including conservation groups and even foreign governments.
So you're saying our public lands could be managed by private groups or even foreign governments?
Yeah, that's the idea.
And what kind of control would they have?
Well, the rule doesn't say.
Yeah.
So they could potentially ban motorized vehicles or limit access for certain groups.
That's a scary thought.
It is, and it's one reason why UPLA is so concerned about this rule.
Yeah, it feels like a big change in how our public lands are managed,
It is.
and not necessarily in a good way.
Right.
So what else should we be worried about with this rule?
Well, another key thing is designating areas of critical environmental concern,
Areas of critical environmental concern. What's that?
ACECs.
Okay.
We already have some of those in Utah, but this rule could create a lot more.
And what's wrong with that? Aren't they supposed to protect sensitive areas?
They are.
Okay.
But when you designate an area as an ACEC, it usually comes with a lot of restrictions,
Cool.
like no motorized recreation, no grazing, even certain types of camping.
So even if they're meant to protect resources,
Right.
they could still have a big impact on how people use the land.
Exactly.
Okay.
The rule prioritizes conservation over everything else,
Okay.
and it doesn't really consider other users.
You mentioned intact landscapes.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
That's one of the more concerning parts of this rule.
Okay.
It prioritizes keeping landscapes intact,
Okay.
but there's no clear definition of what that means.
So it's open to interpretation.
Exactly. It creates a lot of uncertainty, and it gives a lot of power to land managers
Yeah.
who could use that to restrict access and how people use the land.
It sounds like this rule gives a lot of power.
It does.
They can get what they want without going through the normal political processes.
Right. It shifts power away from groups like UPLA and toward those who want to restrict how people use public lands.
It sounds like it would be a lot harder for groups like UPLA and the Blue Ribbon Coalition to advocate for their members
Exactly.
and to protect recreation.
Yeah, the rule adds a lot of bureaucratic obstacles and legal complexities that could make it harder for them to be heard.
So the fight over public lands is about to get even more complicated.
You could say that.
Okay, I'm officially worried.
Yeah.
What can people do to protect their right to use public lands?
That's a great question, and one we should definitely explore
Yeah.
after a quick break.
Okay, sounds good. So we're facing some big challenges when it comes to protecting access to public lands.
Yeah.
What can we do to make sure everyone can keep enjoying these places?
Well, first you have to understand the issues.
Okay.
Like, what impact could this rule have?
So do your research, stay informed, and follow the news.
Right.
Are there specific organizations people should be following?
Absolutely. Groups like the Utah Public Lands Alliance and the Blue Ribbon Coalition are great resources.
UPLA and the Blue Ribbon Coalition.
Yeah. They give updates on land management issues,
Okay.
and they advocate for policies that support recreation and access for everyone.
So how can people find them?
They have websites, newsletters, social media.
Okay, so connect with those groups.
Yeah?
Stay informed. But what about actually doing something?
Well, one of the best things you can do is participate in the public comment process.
Public comment process.
Yeah, when agencies like the BLM propose new rules, they have to get input from the public.
Okay.
And this is your chance to say what you think.
So writing letters, sending emails, going to meetings. Does that really make a difference?
It can,
Really?
especially if your comments are well-informed and clear,
Okay.
and you back them up with facts.
So it's not just about complaining.
Yeah.
It's about making a real argument.
Exactly. Be an informed and engaged citizen.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It can be.
Are there resources to help people?
Yeah, groups like UPLA and the Blue Ribbon Coalition help their members write effective comments.
Okay.
They might have workshops, webinars,
Okay.
or even sample letters that you can use.
So they're really trying to help people.
They are.
Make a difference. What about things people can do in their own communities?
Oh, yeah. Get involved with local clubs and organizations. A lot of them organize trail maintenance projects, cleanups,
Oh,
and
sure.
educational events.
To promote responsible use of public lands.
Right, turn your passion into action.
And it's not just about recreation.
Right,
A lot of these groups also restore habitats,
Yeah.
monitor wildlife, things like that.
exactly. It's about the overall health of public lands.
It's amazing what these volunteer groups do.
It is.
Shows how much people care about these places.
It really does. It shows how much we all share the responsibility for these lands.
Okay.
It's not just up to the government.
Right.
We all have to do our part.
And these lands are so valuable,
Yeah.
not just for recreation, but for everything they provide.
Absolutely.
Clean water, wildlife habitat, even our own mental and physical health.
It's about protecting our future.
So we have to be vigilant, informed, and engaged.
Yeah, we can't be complacent.
The future of our public lands is at stake.
Right. The decisions we make today will have a lasting impact.
So we talked about the threats,
Yeah.
why we need to get involved.
Right.
But is there any reason to be optimistic?
I think so.
Okay.
More and more people are realizing how important outdoor recreation is
Okay.
for our economy and for our well-being.
So more people are getting outside.
Exactly.
That means they'll want to protect those places.
Yeah, it's about building support for conservation and responsible recreation.
Okay.
The more people who love these lands, the stronger our voice will be when we need to protect them.
Like they say, you protect what you love.
Exactly. And this love for public lands is really strong in younger generations.
Oh, that's good.
They get how important it is to connect with nature
Right.
and preserve these places for the future.
It feels like we're moving past that old us versus them mentality.
I agree. I think we can create a more collaborative approach to land management,
Okay.
one that works for everyone.
So instead of fighting over every acre,
Yeah,
we need to work together.
exactly. It's about finding that balance where conservation and recreation can both exist.
It's a tough balance,
It is.
but we have to try.
We do for future generations.
So we have more people getting outside,
Right.
a new generation of land stewards,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a more collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Anything else to be optimistic about
Well, there's been a big increase in philanthropy.
for land conservation?
Yeah, for land conservation and outdoor recreation.
So it's not just about government funding anymore.
Right. Private foundations, corporations, even individuals are supporting projects.
To protect and improve public lands.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's more money available
There is.
for these projects.
And private groups can be more flexible
Okay.
than government agencies.
So we have a lot to worry about,
You do.
but also some reasons for optimism.
Yeah,
It sounds like the future of our public lands depends on us,
it does.
whether we stay involved, work together,
Yeah.
and find solutions that work for everyone.
That's a good way to put it. It's complicated.
Yeah.
But the choices we make today will have a huge impact on the future.
You said earlier that wilderness designation and restricted access affects some people more than others.
It does.
Could you explain that a little more?
Sure.
Who are the people most affected by this?
Their actions can really hurt people.
Okay.
Especially those who need to drive to remote areas for work or even just to enjoy themselves.
So people who use ATVs,
Hmm.
UTVs, dirt bikes, or their cars.
Right, to get to trails or campsites, fishing spots, places that could be off limit.
Exactly. And it's not always about recreation.
Right,
Some people need to drive for their jobs.
like ranchers.
Yeah, ranchers, miners.
Okay.
They need vehicles to get to work.
And for some, it's about their heritage.
Right.
Native American tribes have used vehicles for generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get to sacred sites, gather food, or just travel across their land.
So if you restrict driving,
Yeah,
it makes it harder for them to keep their traditions alive.
it does.
We forget that people are part of the landscape too.
That's an important point. We can't talk about conservation
Right.
without thinking about the people.
Right. These lands belong to all of us.
Exactly.
So we need to manage them in a way that respects everyone.
Absolutely.
So who are some of the groups most affected by restricted access?
Well, you mentioned ranchers.
Right. How does wilderness designation affect them?
A lot of ranchers rely on grazing permits
Okay.
to use public lands,
Mm-hmm.
but those permits come with rules.
Okay.
Like you have to be able to get to remote areas to check on your livestock
Okay.
or fix fences or provide water.
And if they can't drive there,
Right. It could make it much harder for them to do their jobs.
or even impossible.
Yeah, it could cost them more money, make them less productive,
Mhm.
and some might even have to give up their permits.
And that would hurt the whole community.
It would. These decisions have far-reaching consequences.
Okay, what about people with disabilities?
Yeah, for them, vehicles are essential.
To get outside.
Right. They might use wheelchairs, scooters,
Okay.
or adapted vehicles to get to trails,
Okay.
fishing spots, or just to enjoy nature.
And if they can't drive there,
It's like they're shut out completely.
so it's a barrier
It is.
that keeps them from enjoying public lands.
Yeah, we have to think about what access really means.
Right, for different people.
Exactly.
It's about making public lands welcoming for everyone.
It is. It's about making sure everyone can connect with nature.
So we talked about ranchers and people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Are there other groups affected by restricted access?
Well, older adults might not be able to hike very far,
Okay.
so driving allows them to still get outside.
Right, to stay connected with nature.
Exactly. And they have a lot of knowledge to share that
Right.
can help teach younger generations about responsibility.
So public lands aren't just for young people.
No, they're for everyone.
Right, we need to make everyone feel welcome.
You do.
So we have to be more thoughtful
We do.
about how our decisions affect different people.
Yeah, we need a more nuanced approach
Okay.
that considers everyone.
We need to protect these lands,
Yes,
but also let people enjoy them.
that's the goal.
We covered a lot today.
We did.
Challenges, how to get involved,
Mm-hmm.
and how to find a balanced approach.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Just that public lands belong to all of us.
Okay.
We have to protect them
Right.
for future generations.
And that means we need to speak up,
Yes.
get involved,
Mm-hmm.
hold our leaders accountable.
Exactly.
It's up to all of us,
It is. The future of public lands depends on us.
working together
Yeah.
to find solutions that work for everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
This has been great. Thanks for sharing your insights.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners,
Yeah.
remember, this fight is far from over. Stay informed, get involved, speak up.
Absolutely.
Public lands are common ground, stretch for miles all around. Young and old, they come to play. Don't let Suwa take away. Mountains, rivers, open skies, where the spirit freely flies. Kids run wild without a care. Suwa says we can't go there. Don't let Suwa shut us out.